Collectivism rarely presents itself as anti-freedom. It claims to offer a better kind of freedom, freedom from risk, uncertainty, and want. In Chapter 3, Hayek explains why redefining freedom this way quietly puts individual choice on life support. Chapter 3 argues that collectivism does not openly reject freedom, but subtly redefines it until individual choice survives only when it aligns with collective goals. By Chapter 3, Hayek is no longer describing how liberal societies abandon restraint or why utopian planning appeals to moral instincts. He now turns to something more subtle and more dangerous, a shift in how freedom itself is understood. This chapter is about language, assumptions, and moral framing. Hayek's central claim is unsettling. Collectivism does not usually present itself as anti-freedom. Instead, it claims to be a higher form of freedom, freedom from want, freedom from uncertainty, freedom from social risk. And it is precisely this redefinition that makes collectivist systems so difficult to resist. The original meaning of individualism. Hayek begins by correcting a widespread misunderstanding. Individualism, as he uses the term, does not mean selfishness, atomism, or indifference to others. It refers to a social order in which individuals are free to pursue their own ends, within general rules applied equally, without being directed towards a single collective purpose. This tradition does not deny cooperation. It enables it, voluntarily, spontaneously, and without coercion. Most importantly, classical individualism accepts that people value different things. It does not attempt to resolve those differences from above. Freedom, in this sense, means the absence of imposed ends, not the guarantee of specific outcomes. What collectivism promises instead? Collectivism, Hayek argues, begins with a very different assumption. It assumes that society has a knowable shared purpose, and that individual actions should be judged by how well they serve that purpose. In collectivist thinking, freedom becomes the ability to participate in a common plan. Choice becomes meaningful only when it aligns with social goals. Dissent is tolerated only as long as it does not disrupt coordination. The individual is not abolished, but he is subordinated. This subordination is often framed as moral progress. Why allow individuals to make wasteful or harmful choices when society knows better? The crucial redefinition of freedom. Here is the core move Hayek exposes. Freedom is redefined from the right to choose into the ability to operate what planners deem necessary. This sounds humane. It often is humane in intention, but it carries a hidden cost. If freedom means guaranteed outcomes, employment, security, equality, then someone must decide which outcomes matter most, who qualifies, and what must be sacrificed to achieve them. Freedom becomes conditional. You are free as long as your choices do not interfere with the plan. Why this redefinition changes everything. Once freedom is defined in terms of collective goals, coercion becomes morally justified. If the plan is rational, if the goals are just, if the outcomes are necessary, then resistance is no longer an expression of liberty. It becomes selfishness, ignorance, or sabotage. Hayek's warning is not that collectivists hate freedom. It is that they relocate freedom from individuals to institutions. And once freedom lives in institutions, individuals can lose it for their own good. The illusion of shared purpose. Collectivist systems rely on the belief that society can agree on its ultimate aims. Hayek insists this belief is false. Modern societies are pluralistic. Different religions, different values, different visions of the good life. A single plan cannot reflect them all. So what happens? The plan does not disappear, disagreement does. Unity must be enforced. Why democracy doesn't solve the problem. Collectivists often argue that democratic control can keep planning humane. Hayek is skeptical. Democracy can choose leaders. It cannot choose a single coherent set of values for millions of people. When disagreements persist, planners face a choice: abandon the plan or override dissent. Historically, they choose the latter. This is not because they are villains. It is because the logic of collectivism demands it. Individualism as a moral safeguard. Hayek argues that individualism is not morally indifferent. It is morally cautious. It recognizes the limits of knowledge, the dangers of certainty, the impossibility of consensus. By refusing to impose a single vision of the good, it protects diversity of ends. It accepts imperfection to avoid coercion. That is its strength. How this chapter advances the whole argument. Chapter 3 explains why societies slide towards coercion without realizing it. The danger is not brute force. The danger is a moral reframing. Freedom becomes security. Choice becomes coordination. Dissent becomes harm. Once this shift occurs, later chapters no longer feel surprising. They feel inevitable. Connection to war and management. Wartime conditions accelerate collectivist thinking. Coordination is necessary. Sacrifice is normalized. Dissent is dangerous. When war ends, the mindset remains. Freedom, once redefined, does not automatically return. Hayek's warning in Chapter 3 is that freedom does not vanish overnight. It is redefined, repurposed, and eventually administered. In the next chapter, Hayek takes this argument one step further and asks why planning never stays partial. Chapter 4 explains why limited planning creates pressures that push societies towards more control, not less. Thank you for listening. Please leave a like and subscribe.